Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Kaylee June and I'm a beauty and portrait photographer based in Sydney, Australia. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to communicate with models and a creative team. Now, this is more or less for your first ever photo shoot because I know there's a lot of you out there that are just beginning with photography and particularly fashion and beauty photography. And it can be a little intimidating to start off and actually working with bigger creative teams or working with models in general. I remember on one of my first ever fashion shoots with a creative team and model, I was like this before the shoot. I was shaking. For those of you who don't know, I'm a really big introvert and I have been for a really long time. The whole process has definitely gotten a lot easier for me as I've gotten older and as I've had more experience on shoots. But definitely when I first started off, I was very, very nervous and I didn't know how to communicate with the models that I was working with or the creative team members. I would just kind of like stand there in the background, kind of like waiting for the makeup to be done, like just terrified of like speaking to people. So I thought it would be a really good idea to do a video today on some of the things that you can kind of think about if you are communicating with models for the first time on a photo shoot, or just conversing in general with a creative team, or just some things that you might want to keep in mind on your first photo shoot, especially if you're an introvert like me and you're a little bit intimidated by working with creative teams or models. I feel like hopefully some of these things might help you out today. So getting straight into the video today, I think the one thing that needs to be said straight off the bat is just be as normal as possible. And I know it's easy to say this because if you're an introvert or you're really intimidated socially, you might be thinking to yourself, like, be normal. You really want me to be myself or be normal on a photo shoot? I get that. I totally get that. But I think the really important thing to remember is everyone on the shoot day is human. Everyone is having their own insecurities that they're battling with. So don't feel like you're alone in this. Don't feel like you're maybe a really shy person or you're really uncertain of what to say or do on the day, because there might be other people on the creative team that are exactly the same as you. And to be honest, there's times that I feel like that. Even now, 15 years into doing photography now, I still get those moments where I'm like, I don't know what to say right now, or I don't know what to do, or, there might be those awkward silences. Don't worry, it's normal. It's completely normal on a shoot day to feel that way, and especially for your first photo shoot. It's also really important to be respectful. Now, I know this really shouldn't have to be said, but I think being respectful of your creative team, and particularly models, a lot of the time they will feel a little bit more exposed, being that they have to have their hair and makeup done. They are the center of attention for most of the day, so I think it's really important that you do treat them and treat your creative team with respect. Definitely try and make them feel as comfortable as possible from the moment they walk in the door, whether you're shooting in a studio, whether you're shooting outdoors. Just make sure that you're giving off a comfortable vibe and that you're making them feel as comfortable as possible as well. So in starting with that, I think it's a really good way to start bonding with your team and the models that you might have on board. And the first thing you can ask them when they come through the door is just start asking them about themselves and what they do and do they study. Just chat normally with them and just ask out of interest, some regular questions about what's going on in their lives at the moment with work and how their morning's been. Just really, really simple questions like that are a really great way to break the ice and actually start to get to know your team members and the models that you're photographing. Another tip, which is a really good way to break the ice, is actually offer to go and get some drinks, whether that be coffee or tea for the team. And I definitely feel like this is something that I do every time I do a shoot, which actually I shouldn't make it a habit because I actually tend to spend a lot on coffee on photo shoots. So I should really stop that. But I think it's a really nice way to break the ice sometimes with a new team or with some models that you might be working with, and just ask if they want anything. It's just a really nice, kind gesture. And sometimes one of the team members might come with you to get coffee, and then you can just kind of like bond with them on the way. It's a really nice way to start the day. Everyone's had their caffeine, they're feeling great. For me, it's like an essential way to start a photo shoot. I think another great way to start kind of getting a good vibe within the room and within your photo shoot on the first day, a great way to feel like things aren't getting too awkward with the vibe in the room too, is to put on some music. So if you feel like there's any awkward silences, or even if there's no awkward silences, it's nice to just have some music going in the background. It gets people kind of pumped up for the shoot, and it gets people just into more of a comfortable and relaxed mode. And it's really a nice way to do this, especially if it's morning, everyone's not quite awake yet. You might have team members that are not very talkative in the morning, especially. Sometimes I can be like that, but I think a great way to start the day and start the shoot is also by having music, and you can kind of get everyone in a relaxed vibe that way too. I think it's important to note too that the more you get comfortable with your team in the lead up to actually photographing, because usually if you've got a makeup artist on board or you've got a hairstylist or any creative team member like that doing the makeup and hair for the model, it's going to take a little while, so there will be a lot of time to sort of chat initially and discuss with your team members what the shoot's going to look like, but also chat to the model about, you know, how their day's been and all the rest of the things that I spoke about before. And it's a really good time to kind of bond with the team during that stage of the day. And the more comfortable you get in the beginning and the more comfortable you make everyone else feel from the start of the day, it makes it a lot easier in the lead up to actually photographing the model. And I feel like usually if you've made everyone sort of feel comfortable, you've bonded a little bit with them initially, then usually when it actually comes time to photograph the model, they're relaxed, they're posing better, they're laughing. It's just a lot easier to work with models that you've kind of bonded with initially, especially, and also with the creative team too. So another thing I'm going to mention as well is just really in correlation with being respectful, but it's just kind of an etiquette thing on photo shoots that maybe not everyone kind of realizes when they're first starting out. And it's actually, if you've got a stylist on board, for example, it's important to not touch the clothes. If you've got a makeup artist on board, don't touch anything that doesn't really belong to you unless you've had the permission to do so. And that goes with the models as well. Obviously, it's just being respectful, knowing the boundaries. One thing that I was always told from the beginning, especially was with the styling, and not to touch clothes, because depending on where the stylist has actually gotten those clothes from, if they're actually loaning some of those clothes from a brand or a designer or someone else, you actually don't want to get them dirty at all, because the stylist doesn't actually own those, and you want to make sure that they go back to the brand in pristine condition. So it's really important, you know, you might have dirty hands and not realize. Quite often I've unknowingly had makeup on my camera interface and everything, so I've actually had it on my hands and I haven't realized. And it's just things like that that you might not realize during the day. If you were to touch clothing or you were to touch something else, you want to make sure that there's no marks, you want to make sure that it's completely clean going back. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then one of the last things I'm going to mention today is make sure that you are attentive to everyone in the team. Don't just single out one person that you are really attentive to and then kind of forget about the rest. It's really important that you communicate with each of your team members, with the models as well, and making sure that they're not feeling left out or not feeling like you're kind of playing favorites on the day, because that's a really, really horrible way to isolate people. And I have been on shoots before where this has happened and certain team members have done this. So I think it's really nice to make sure that you pay attention to everyone that's there on the day. You make sure you acknowledge them and make sure that you're discussing with the creative team members about the shoot. Make sure that that doesn't kind of get left by the wayside, because a lot of the time it's all too easy to get really chatty and start having lots of conversations with the team members without actually remembering that you're there to do a task, you're there to do a job too. So make sure that you are having those conversations as well with the creative team members about the shoot, and make sure you're explaining to the model too some of those things along the way, because sometimes they can feel a bit left out in the shoot planning, and it's good to really highlight what you've got organized for the day with them too. All right guys, so I hope that some of these things today have helped you. If you have not done a photo shoot before and you have an upcoming photo shoot for the first time, I hope some of these things will maybe stick in your mind for that first day, and just some of those tips to maybe not make the vibe too awkward. I know that it's so awkward the first time you do your photo shoot. I'm not gonna lie, like the first time I had a photo shoot, I was really nervous. As I said before, I was really, really terrified. But you know what? After the first couple of hours being there, I really started to warm up. And there's something about being behind the camera too that feels a little bit powerful. And I think that I tend to get behind the camera after I've had the initial conversations with everyone, and I just feel a little bit more in control of what's happening in the day. There's just something about being a photographer in that way, I think, that really helps. If you are introverted, maybe a little bit of hope for you guys. If you feel like this is something that you just would never be able to do, I can definitely tell you that as an introvert and as someone who was a lot more introverted when I was younger, this is absolutely something that you can achieve. And don't believe for a second that you can't, because it's all down to experience. The more you do these photo shoots, the easier everything becomes. And I think it's really important to just remember those communication methods that can really help on the day. All right guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, make sure that you do, because I'll be posting a lot more content in future. If you have any great ways that you like to create a really comfortable vibe on a photo shoot, please put them down in the comment section below, because there's a lot of new photographers on this channel that I'm sure would love to hear those tips. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!